It always comes to this. More nice shit. Hello there, guys. Here to do another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I had just showed off, I think I just showed off the finished tentacles on my stomach and my left side. I think that's the last session. I've had 2 sessions since then. I had a session with Rick Monday, and then I had a session with Terry this Wednesday. Obviously, I have to start with that one because it's very, very apparent. Hard to hide the face tattoos. I can talk about the other session in the next video. I had done the first pass of these filigrees on my face a couple weeks ago. It's been about 3.5 weeks now. Yeah, so the plan with that was always to do them twice, maybe even 3 times. Really, as many times as it's going to take us. It's a very, it doesn't take a long time. It's more of a finicky thing than it is a difficult thing. So the plan was to line them out with white, do white line work in the center, which was nerve-wracking. I should say this time wasn't nearly as difficult for Terry. The first time he was so concerned with getting the symmetry on these right. You know, it's really, really tight spaces and there's no room for error, and he wanted to make sure they were correct on both sides. So it was difficult the first time, but again, not so bad this time. The whole thing took probably about an hour and a half. There's actually a lot more work in there than it looks like, because again, anytime I do this white on black, black on black work, you need both in there. The only places we don't have black work through here is these really thin spots, which I still think I'm going to convince Terry to run a thin liner around those, because I think it'll really help the white pop, because we can see the black really does pop out this white a lot more. So again, this is the power of black and white on black working together versus just white. You can see the difference here. This is going to stay and it's going to look a little bit more like that, where these ones here aren't going to be as defined, just having the white. Even in the chin, we did some black on black shading and lining. So again, anytime you get your face tattooed, not super painful. About an hour and a half. There's some spots near the ear that are a little bit painful, but not too crazy. Definitely they're standing out a lot more. With how striking they are right now, if they were to stay this bright, I wouldn't actually be happy with that. I said that same thing when I got these roses on my face done. I kind of wanted them to mellow out to this tone because they were way too bright. So like when I got up after the session to check them out, Terry's like, "What do you think?" He's like super stoked to see my reaction, and I was actually kind of like, yeah, it's good." But in saying that, I knew they were gonna fade. It's just I don't want them that bright. I don't want white ink on my face. I want almost like a black and gray type thing. So while it is cool, it's almost too striking the way it is right now. One of the next things I want to do with Terry, I haven't talked about a lot, but I want to get into these leaves. I want to darken and brighten parts of the leaves on my face there, like the head. I kind of want to redo all of my head tattoos, just kind of bit by bit working away at things here and there. I originally had pitched the idea to Terry to do one of my sleeves, but I think that big of scale is kind of, it's confusing for him using the negative, the dynamic as kind of like a mid-tone, the dynamic being the black we did my blackout with. And I think that doing that kind of work on a large scale is pretty intimidating for him. Rick has obviously had no trouble with it, but using the already blacked out black as a mid-tone is really confusing. Even for me thinking about it, it's hard to describe, let alone process it. But some of the the work in here, for example, the parts that aren't real bright or the parts that aren't real dark are the dynamic black. So you're almost starting with the mid-tone already in and then putting in the highs and lows. It's tricky. So I don't think that he'll end up doing one of my sleeves. I think they'll probably both be done by Rick. But Scotty Tattooer, one of the guys I used to do the podcast with, also wants to do one of my sleeves. So there's a little bit of a bidding war over who gets to do some of my work. That being said, I want everything to have a connected feel. So even if Rick didn't do everything, it would all be in the same similar style. It's just obviously the work that I'm doing with Rick is taking ages, which I don't mind the slow process, but it is tempting to go a little bit faster, which is why I'm working with Terry for a lot of these little things. I did want to make a note on face tattoos while I'm here. I've talked a lot about face tattoos. I've talked a lot about, for example, recently, me not wanting to do a full face tattoo. I also think I have probably more hours of work in my face at this point than a lot of people with full face tattoos, as a side note. But I wanted to talk a little bit about when I first got my face tattooed. It was the only time out of anything I did, and that was 11 years ago now. It's been 11 years because October 2011 is when I first got my face tattooed. It was the only time in my entire tattoo journey that my mother took exception. People ask me all the time what my parents think. Well, my father is deceased, so we don't need to talk about what he thinks, but he had no problem with me tattooing my face. He had no problem with me tattooing my neck or anything like that. None of that stuff was a deal breaker for him. But my mother, when I tattooed my face for the first time, and this even after I already had lots of stretch piercings and neck tattoos and stuff like that, for her that was a deal breaker at the time. She wrote a big nasty message on my Facebook account, the picture of me showing it off. She later apologized and deleted her comment, but that was the one line for her for whatever reason. And it's funny now because I'll come home. Well, I'll go to my mom's house for like Thanksgiving dinner this week. It's Thanksgiving in Canada coming up here. And like these days she's more excited to see what I've gotten done, or like just curious, or sometimes she'll roll her eyes and, oh, you're never going to stop and all that, which is true. I'm never going to stop. But like now that I pushed that limit, and since I pushed that limit, it kind of actually tamed her a bit, where like I think she was always a little bit annoyed with me doing more. And then once I did that, it was like, well, what's he going to do now that's going to be worse than that? I mean, I'm sure she still wouldn't like me coming home looking like the Black Alien Project, but my mother and I have always had a pretty close relationship, and she actually encouraged a lot of my piercings and tattoos when I was young. And she actually came with me for my first ever tattoo appointment. I've talked a bit about my first ever tattoo, but it was I got my son's name on my forearm, and I think that was probably a good way to break it in with her. My parents already had tattoos themselves, but they were the kinds of people that had, like, you know, my dad had like a big dragon on his arm, like an old 80s style dragon on his arm, and my mom had like birthstones for her kids and stuff like that. So it's not like they had a lot going on, but they certainly never discouraged it. And as far as work, when I came in with my face tattooed, I already had neck tattoos and piercings and stuff like that for a long time. So my boss, she didn't mind. My boss was also pretty accommodating of any of that stuff, but I'd already kind of pushed that line a little bit. I remember her just seeing it and going, again, like my mom, just thinking, you're never going to stop, and had a little chuckle. But it was never this great big deal breaker like a lot of people think it's going to be. I never really had any of those kinds of experiences where face tattoos hindered anything that I was going to do. I never had any hard lines imposed on me because of it. You know, people like to joke, like, you must be fun at the airport and stuff like that. Like, I've been on planes, my piercings don't trigger metal detectors or anything like that, but there's all kinds of things that people think are going to happen to you when you get a lot of visible tattoo work or piercings or anything like that. But none of that actually ever happened to me, and I was always happy with the job I had. I'm not saying there weren't jobs that would have discluded me, especially 11 years ago, but I don't know if it's just my outlook on it or if it's just that I've been lucky or what, but none of my piercings or tattoos have held me back from doing anything. And usually what happens is about 5 to 10 minutes into a conversation with me, most people barely even see, as strange as that probably sounds, being that I'm standing here with dangling piercings in my ears and multiple layers of face tattoos and head tattoos and hand tattoos and full black tattoos. I haven't experienced a whole lot of discrimination in the real world based on anything I've done. And the only place that I have experienced that kind of stuff, that it's been tangible, has been online. Now, when I was younger, there was some attempts at bullying or whatever when I was in school, but for the most part, the real world, there's been no real issues. The physical world, there's been no issues caused by my piercings and tattoos. It's really just people online, people making up crazy stories and coming at you from different lanes online. Like I get people telling me they think that I'm trying to be black, or like I'll never get a job, or I'm on government assistance, stuff like that. This is stuff I never hear, by the way, when people meet me in real life, but those are the kinds of things that you hear a lot online. So as a little tip to people, I would say that the only thing you have to worry about when you get your face tattooed, because I want to make this short, is people are going to say nasty things to you online. There's going to be a lot of that stuff. If that stuff matters to you, I wouldn't advise getting face tattoos or lots of piercings. But people aren't going to say that stuff to you very often in person. It just doesn't happen. I mean, I'm sorry. There's probably someone out there who has an experience or two, or even who's going to come in here and say that they would say it to me in person, but that's never happened. And I'm, again, walking around with a full blackout suit, obviously doing work over top of it. Lots of face tattoos. I don't ever hear anything like that. So all that stuff is overblown and for social media. So, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to ramble too much longer. I'll show these off quick, real close. So again, these are looking a lot closer. And never bet against me when it comes to these things. I said this was going to happen, and it's now happened. Here in a week, I'll be showing these off again, and guarantee you what they're going to look like is they're going to be more subtle than they were, but they're still going to be very striking. And you can take that to the bank. All right, I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.